All right. Who wants to hear story time with Jay Tarot? The 2 chapters that I have edited to fucking hell to change the whole direction of the story. You want to hear it? Tried printing these bitches out. My printer is like printing like one printed page with like 5 blank pages, and I'm like, what the fuck? So yeah, it took a little while. So I ran out of paper because I have to keep putting the blank pages back in it. But okay, what the fuck? Aspiring writers out there, maybe you have the same feeling I do that you fucking suck. Who wants to hear this shit? But it's like, you gotta begin somewhere. And it's like, after the 3rd chapter is where shit really starts to get dark. But I haven't figured out the point of view character way I'm gonna go with that. So yeah, I'm still figuring out chapter 3. But second edit of chapter 1 and 2, if any of y'all want to hear it. Here we go. Alright, I'm not using my fucking table because fuck it. More comfortable on my bed. Okay. Dark Night of the Druid. Yeah. Really hard to share this shit. Okay. Let us prepare for the scrutinism. Okay. Chapter 1. It is like a dream. You don't seem to know how you got there. You just end up in the middle of the action somehow. My life, as I knew it, was moving at the pace of a turtle. Business was slow at the apothecary and bills piling up. My social life was dead, and my existence consisted of Hot Pockets, Netflix, and a blanket of fluff named Chewy. She's my rescue cat and my loyal movie marathon companion, a Himalayan with piercing blue eyes. She keeps me company while I cry into a tub of Ben and Jerry's. I can't be sure of the exact moment that caused my life to fall into such a mess, but I can pinpoint the cause of my current predicament. Todd, biggest douchebag name I could think of, whom I believed was a beautiful man, but he has a broken soul. At one time, I wanted to share my life with him. It has been a year since our breakup. Equally, as many days since, life fell into a routine I could count on until he decided to throw a wrench in it. I finally got used to a life of mediocrity and going unnoticed. The shock I felt when I received a message he wanted to talk stopped me dead in my tracks. I should have used my magic somehow, some way. I didn't know what or how I didn't know how or what to do. It was all I ever wanted since the day he broke my heart. We shared something so beautiful that I didn't think humanly possible. Our souls connected in a way that was like instant recognition of lifetimes full of passion and love. Finding each other over and over. It occurred to me in that moment that I needed to be cautious on my reply. As my twin sister would say, never let them see you bleed or cry. So I didn't respond until I could think it through. I never I never thought of myself as much, just average. Dirty blonde hair, oval face, wider than I'd like nose bridge, ivory skin. Both, bleh. But my one feature I love are my multi-hued blue eyes shaped like almonds. Some days I might consider myself pretty, if in a dimly lit room. My twin sister Aconite was a beautiful one. Of course she worked hard to have the sex appeal and beauty by expensive beauty routines and constant maintenance. Where my eyes are deep and mysterious, hers are fiery and tempestuous. We look alike, but I don't care about such things. Our differences are very apparent. My sister and I don't only differ in our beauty routines, I have the uncanny ability to feel every emotion in the book and drive myself insane with grief and anxiety, while Aconite couldn't care less about mundane, trivial things. Her focus is on herself and me. Nothing bothers her. I envy that. I care too much about everyone, while ignoring my own problems until they grow so astronomical in proportions. This Todd situation is one of those problems. I can't ignore this anymore. I opened the message Todd had written me the day before and began pouring my heart out. In a way I didn't expect, I tell him how much he hurt me, and I cannot forgive his actions, that he doesn't deserve me and I wish him the best. After all those months of yearning for a man, a person with emotional maturity of a rock, who wasn't there when I truly needed him, I realized when I typed the words, I no longer allow people to walk on me and toss me aside. I needed that closure from within myself instead of longing and seeking it from him. I would never get the answers I desperately wanted from him always. Sorry. After pressing send, though I felt a wave of regret and panic, here I go again, having to feel every emotion in the book until I get to the conclusion. Having a questioning nature, I go through life on feeling instead of pure logic. Like my sister, it's exhausting. Here was my world. I can't allow him to crumble it, no matter how much I still love him. So I decide before a mental breakdown from panic to call her. Aconite may be my twin, but we are so incredibly different. I wonder sometimes if we really are related. I can hear loud music in the background as he picks up the phone, along with yelling partygoers. Another bar. She's always at a bar or club. As it goes quiet, I can tell she went outside to hear me better, and I begin to cry. Todd messaged me, and I basically just told him to fuck off. I sobbed in her ear. Asked her, honey, why are you crying then? With a typical sigh of annoyance. Because it's all I've ever wanted the past year. To hear from him. Know he cared. And I just ruined it. A coward that can leave you like that and show no emotion like a stunted child is no real man. He will never be good enough for you. Forget him, babe. There's so many other fish in the sea. What caused our breakup was he always made me feel crazy for expressing emotions and reacting to life in what seemed to me a normal human way. I was in pain and he just ran. He left me in danger and didn't care. After a fight, he turned to stone. He never could admit his real issue: fear. I can't help loving him. I can't help feeling things, I managed to whisper. As I cried, holding the phone, I felt a shift in the air. The blue tile planter next to my ratty old couch, housing a caterpillar fern, started to vibrate lightly as the energy flowed through the soil. Slowly peeking through the dirt was a small rosebud. It was a beautiful sight every time I saw the magic in action. The bud, growing a light green as it grew, sprouted its petals and leaves. I could almost hear music as it matured into its fully grown masterpiece, white. A white rose with iridescent shimmer on every petal, unfolding brilliantly in the low light of my living room. It took its own spotlight in the center of my fern. It smelled rich and filled the room with its calming fragrance, erasing my anxieties. As my sister and I are different, we still share a sacred connection, like all twins, whom shared the womb. Even though our fights and disagreements, we still love each other and protect each other, her more than I. Although she can be the cause of much of my anxiety, she can also soothe me in no way anyone else can. She knows the magic is the one thing that keeps me grounded. I thank her and say farewell as my tears dry up on my cheeks. I settle back into my couch for another late night trying to forget about everything through other stories on my TV screen with my fluffy companion. We belong to an ancient line of druids with the ability to control nature and the elements. Our ancestors are said to have been so powerful they seeded the earth with life. As generations have passed, our powers have faded, as less and less care has been given to the earth and the life in it by its inhabitants. Our father passed when we were young, leaving Mia, our mother, to raise us with our grandmother Enid. The four musketeers, we always called ourselves. Taking care of one another was ingrained in my sister and I for as long as I can remember. Our mother never let us go out without the other. The buddy system, she called it. We understood to an extent why our mother was so adamant on staying together whenever outside the house, so we could protect each other. But one day, in 5th grade, Aconite had to serve detention for talking back to a teacher. I didn't want to wait for her, so I started walking home alone. The school bully, a boy named Max, that looked much like a grossly overweight basset hound, then demanded I pay a toll to pass. Sadly, this had been the first time I had ever been more than 20 feet away from my sister. Everyone, even Max was afraid of her. She had this aura about her that you just didn't want to cross her, even in 5th grade. I panicked. I tried to walk the other way when he pushed me to the ground and sat on top of me, raising his fists. As I closed my eyes, waiting for the beating to begin, suddenly, I no longer felt the burden of freckle-faced, red-haired Max on top of me. I heard a loud oof from his drooping lips and a hefty plop as he fell back. I opened my eyes to see a cascade of leaves from a nearby oak tree, and Max running like his pants caught fire. We learned that day, even apart, we could still keep each other safe. These days, being 32, we live independent lives. I run the family business, the goddess apothecary, and tend the greenhouses. Aconite promotes clubs and concert venues. We we stay fairly okay, sorry. Misspellings. Okay, we stay fairly busy, but always find time to catch up every few days. It's not hard to know what the other's feeling with the eerie twin kinship. Sometimes we wish this wasn't the case. The next day, as I go through my morning routine getting ready, the phone rings. The city councilman, Robert Summers, warns me of a gas leak in my part of town. An evacuation. I know the Summers because of his wife Diane being a frequent visitor to the apothecary for rosacea. So frequent they get a discount. Seeing as the greenhouse and apothecary are attached to my home, work is out of the cards for the time being. I have a strange feeling. Though, I have a strange feeling though. This situation, I it's connected to me somehow, but I shake it off. Being in nature is the best way for me to re-energize myself. So I head to the state park a few miles away. I relax under the trees and the waving speckled sunlight peeking through the leaves. I take my favorite spot under an old weeping willow, near the soothing sound of crystal clear water running through algae covered rocks. I can feel the roots of all living things in my vicinity, creeping through the soil of the earth, reaching ever more to spread their eager toes further, bringing brimming with the essence of creation. This is where I connect to the spirit, life force of Gaia, like a power cord to an outlet, as above, so below. The wilderness bursts with life, prickly blades of glass, middleman to sky and ground. Nature is in the marrow to my bone. Sprites and other beings doing their daily chores, unencumbered by human frivolity. After a comfortable nap in paradise, I receive a call from Mr. Summers that it's safe to return home. I pick myself up and reluctantly leave my sanctuary behind. My home is a two-floored colonial, high arches above the door in white and black trim. The house had been in the family for generations. My family immigrated to upstate New York from Ireland nearly 2 centuries ago. After my grandmother passed, Enid, my mother Nia, unable to take over the business and house duties, left it to me. Nia isn't around much anymore, checking off everything on her bucket list, traveling and filling her days with excitement. I can't blame her. If I had the wherewithal to accomplish everything I've ever wanted to before leaving this big blue marble on the cosmos, I'd get a jump on it too. Walking up the cobblestone path to my cherry red stained front door, I feel a slight vibration permeating straight into my bones. It feels as though it's coming from the ground of the earth itself, sending pulsating waves to chill me to my core. I can sense the direction which this uncomfortable feeling originates from through the center of the house, the ground. I follow it deep into the damp, unfinished basement, as if it were still the 1800s, uneven floor of packed dirt, moist brick walls made of numerous small rooms, the seemingly held no purpose. I'm pulled to a wall blocked by a large wooden armoire, so simplistic in nature, yet incredibly out of place. Almost nothing decorates this dank space, which makes me raise a brow in interest. I brace myself against the wall next to the oversized heavy piece of furniture and begin to push it aside with all my strength. After a few moments of strenuous labor, the armoire is far away enough from the wall to to, to reveal a small wooden door, rounded at the top, and a large metal ring handle. I lift the handle and it creaks with years of rust and neglect. As I pull, the door drags over the uneven dirt floor. With some effort, I get it open and see beautiful, softly lit green patterns strewn across stone walls. I've lived in this house my whole life and I've never seen or heard of such a structure, such a wonderful sight. I step down a few stairs cautiously, holding up my phone as a flashlight to inspect further into the large temple. Unlike the house, this was a massive open room. Wide posts lining a central path forward to what looked like a large rectangular altar. The patterns lit up on every post and wall, resembling Celtic runes and designs. The whole edifice appeared to be ancient. Large iron lanterns sat on each stone post holding up the ceiling. Moss covered half the room, and I could hear drops of water trickling down into puddles in every direction. Why had my mother and grandmother never mentioned such a structure under my home? Standing in the center of the impressive space, the energy that had been seeping through my every pore lessened so much I nearly forgot why I came searching to begin with. It called me here, whatever it was. Now it occurs to me the power emanating from this place must have caused a gas leak. Why in all my years has this seemingly alive yet immovable place called me to it now? As I rack my brain with uncalculable questions, I hear movement from the floor above. Aconite must be here to make sure I haven't lost my mind yet. I hurry upstairs, tripping on my feet in excitement to show her what I found. Instead of my sister, I find my mother, dragging overpacked suitcases in the living room. For a moment, I think to myself how much I've always hated the motif of this house. Too traditional for my taste. Nia looked young for her age. Much like my sister and I, her hair was as thick as yarn, wavy and dark as night. Gray eyes, an uncomfortable stare they made. Her thick hair currently damp and sticking to her brow as she tugged the cumbersome cases across the old pattern rug. I placed a hand on her shoulder, a smile of helpfulness, as I took the burdens off of her hands. You're home early, Mama, I announced, glancing back at her. Yeah, I know. Elusive annoyance in her voice. Did something happen? I placed the suitcases near the narrow stairway across the living room and turned to meet her eyes. A sad, worried expression crossed her face, and her eyes turned weary. She puts her gaze on me and purses her thin lips. No. A simple word requiring no explanation or reply. She stood in the doorway of the foyer for a brief time, something heavy weighing on her. Then quietly, she opened the front door and closed it gently behind her. I stood confounded, confused, speechless, my mouth gaping open, trying to understand what just transpired. Nia, my mother, was not one to hold things back. She was very much a what you see is what you get type of woman. I can't imagine what would make her meek and have a chance to brag of the adventures she'd experienced of her travels and not. As I begin regaining my composure, the temple comes forth in my mind like a glaring sun, blinding any other thought. What if its activation has something to do with my mother's tight-lipped odd response? Could she know something? Why would the temple be buried under this house? It was ancient. I'm afraid my mother is hiding something, especially about my father. If only I knew more, knew the truth. Enid, Enid and Mia never spoke of my father. It was his side that owned these lands, everything we came from, everything we have. But we know nothing. Only he died when we were young. The phone rings to interrupt my reverie. Aconite, the one person I needed that would understand what I was questioning and thinking. I explained everything that took place, and after a long pause, she agrees to help investigate. It doesn't take her long. She lives in the next town over. When she walks in the door, she finds me sitting on the red velvet upholstered couch edged with dark stained, elaborate carved wood. I was looking through the photo albums, Chewy purring at my side. Did you ever notice that there is not one picture of our father? I asked, flipping through the pages. I noticed. I just never wondered about it, she responded, sitting next to me. Something tells me there's a major reason for it. I tossed the tattered album on the long, worn coffee table in front of the couch and looked at Aconite. Worry and confusion on her face. She sighs, long and hard. One of those things she does when she knows I'm right but won't verbalize it. She places her hand softly on mine and closes her eyes, holding her breath. She lifts my hand, palm up, cupping it. Underneath hers as a small vine emerges from her forearm. As her skin glows a faint green, the pink bud of a clematis flower weaves its way back and forth down the smooth surface of her forearm. It crept, slowly, over my reflexed fingers. Almost without time it settled. Brilliant petals and leaves, glowing faintly, rested in the palm of my hand. As the light faded under her pale skin, the vow broke off just after a perfectly shaped leaf dangling from my outstretched hand. I brought it to my nose and gave it a long sniff, letting it fill me with merriment and calm. Now let's go check out this temple. Satisfaction clear in her voice. I laid the flower and its vine deliberately and carefully on the table. A sheepish smile across my lips as I stand to lead the way. In the doorway of the entrance of the temple, we could see the green-lit pattern strewn across the walls pulsating. It wasn't doing that earlier, I whisper, worried. As we entered together and make our way towards the center, the room goes pitch black. As I reach for Aconite's hand, panic filling me, the room's... God, I am so bad at narrating, just reading this. As I reach for Aconite's hand, panic filling me, the room fills with blinding light. A blast of energy so powerful it throws me back a few feet, landing flat on my back, knocking all the air out of my lungs. I try to scream, but no sound comes out. Gasping for air, blinded by the pierce of light, I try desperately to crawl to the coast on the cold stone floor, seeking the warmth of my sister. My hand finally finds Aconite's, and at that moment the light dissipates back into the dim green patterns etched into the walls. I feel a weight, a heaviness, deep inside me begin to grow, like it attached itself to my very soul and transcended the physical and into the spiritual, weighed down by my body. It took over every cell and neuron of my body. I gasp as I feel my blood carry it throughout and spread until nothing is untouched. My body spasms at the completion of being corrupted by an unknown force, and I am unable to fight it. I am frozen, my body stiff and numb. It's as if Time ceased to exist, and the entire universe fell into nothingness, leaving me to float forever in a darkness full of everything and nothing. As I lay my head to the side, forcing each muscle and tendon to break from its mold, my eyes droop heavily to a close. My sister, tears running down her cheeks, forming streams through caked dirt on her skin, is the last thing I see. Chapter 1. There you go. Okay, maybe I'll make this a separate video. Chapter 1. Dark Night for the Druid. Okay, this is just fucking edit number 2. Gonna be more edits, but if you have any idea how much shit I cut out, yeah. So, chapter 1.